I'm 15 weeks pregnant with our polyfamily second baby, and here I am thinking of running away from the family that we've created. Married for 9 years. Me and my husband have been doing the polyamory thing for 4 years now. This started when my husband confessed to having feelings for one of our mutual friends. He really sold me on the idea of a poly triad, and we started living together. My family disapproved and stopped visiting us. That hurt, but things were okay. I did struggle with some jealousy issues. Although I told my husband that I was open to dating someone new and bringing the new person into our fold, in reality, I wasn't ready at all. The guys I liked quickly distanced themselves romantically as soon as they heard that I was a married female in a non-monogamous relationship. It was hard. As for the guys who were okay with my situation and pursued me, I wasn't attracted to them. Things changed in 2017, when my husband's girlfriend became pregnant with my husband's first child. I love the kid, I really do. She calls me Maman and loves me a lot. Right around the same time, my company promoted me. I went from working 4 hours a day to essentially living 4 months out of my state. I immersed myself in my work, and in 2019, my husband talked about having one of our own to complete the family. Fast forward to June 2020. I find out I'm pregnant and we're having a boy. We had a big gender reveal and everything. The kiddo knows that she's getting a baby brother. I'm currently 15 weeks along, and 2 nights ago, my company offered me a permanent position in the new city. Because of COVID, they had to lay off many people, and they now need more people in leadership roles. From a career standpoint, it would be foolish of me to let this opportunity go, but if I do that, it would break my family apart. Right now, my husband and his girlfriend are working on the baby room, and I'm here sitting conflicted. I'm really tempted to take up this job offer and run away from the life that we've created. I'm also secretly contemplating an abortion. My friend thinks that I should take up the offer. He thinks I'm unhappy with my life and that a change would do me good. I would be working with him if I take up the offer. I have friends in that city, so I know I wouldn't be alone. I'm really stressed out thinking about it. What do I do? Commenter user 1 asks, this whole situation stems from the fact that you became poly under duress by nature of your cheating husband. You don't become poly because you have someone else lined up already. All these people telling you to just work it out fail to see that you were coerced into this situation. I'm baffled why you let it go on so long, especially since you didn't have a kid together, but I suppose it is your visceral desire for stability. I would get an abortion and go create a life you actually enjoy instead of this day-to-day, colorless life of acceptance you've tolerated for way too long. OP comments, this was blunt and maybe the honest response that I needed. My husband and his girlfriend swear that they didn't start a romantic relationship until I was fully in the loop of things. But to be really honest, I don't know. Maybe they did start out by cheating, but that ship has sailed and I accepted the situation. So looking back on that won't help my situation. But I do feel that I need a fresh start now, away from the mundane life that I have. Now here's an update post. I made a post a few days ago about being conflicted with a new job offer and an existing pregnancy. Just thought I'd share it here first. Last night I accepted the job offer and I'm getting an abortion next week. My friend is helping me every step of the way. I'll be filing for divorce in a week or 2. I've had great years with my poly family and my husband, and now it's time for me to make the jump and dive into the unknown. Thanks to all the people who sent me supportive PMs and helped me make my decision. And yes, I did talk to a therapist via Zoom. That session helped me clear my head in a way that I hadn't felt before. And no, I haven't talked to my husband. I will talk to him after I actually get the abortion procedure done. I'm really focused at this moment and don't want conflicting opinions to derail my journey. So I will talk to him after it's all done. Thank you. OP comments, I'm not poly. My husband became poly a couple of years into our marriage when he fell in love with a mutual friend, and I went along with it because I wanted to please my husband and I was afraid of our marriage breaking up. He was, and is, my only partner, and I was terrified of losing him. Clearly, that was a mistake, and it built a lot of resentment inside of me over the years, which I couldn't understand or justify to myself. And then another update came along. If you check my post history, you would know what I'm talking about. Just an update for the people who reached out to me. I did get an abortion last week, on Friday. I finally told him this week, on Wednesday. I'd never seen him so broken. It broke my heart to see him cry, but I had to do it. His girlfriend hugged me. Little kiddo hugged me and bid me goodbye. My husband refused to talk to me. I'm waiting for him to reach out. I'm giving him space right now. I'm at peace and I don't regret my decision. With this, I'm bidding my poly lifestyle a final goodbye. Thanks to all the people here who supported me. Ultimately, this is the correct decision. Poly relationships, as someone already commented, it's usually just an excuse for one person to have affairs in good conscience, I believe. It's weird. I don't see how it could possibly work out long term where multiple romantic partners are okay with the presence and the existence of someone else filling that void that you're supposed to be filling. So that's just my opinion. I think it's weird. I think most people probably think it's weird, but apparently it still exists. People do it, so not everyone thinks that way. But I think she did the right thing by, before she had a kid with this guy, which effectively ties you together forever, or for life at least, go ahead and get that abortion, get out of there before things get really sticky. So good for you. Story 2. A final update 1 year later. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that pregnancy isn't an excuse? I, 36, and my wife, 28, have been trying hard for a baby and finally got lucky with one. Although she is pregnant, it seems like she's using it to her advantage. She recently adopted a cat, which I'm allergic to, and said, "Think of the baby," or "The baby needs a buddy." I gave in, but kept my distance around the cat. Whenever I asked her to help with some chores around the house, she always said she can't because of the baby. I tried communicating to her that I don't want the baby to be an excuse for everything. She began to yell at me, screaming, saying I have no idea what it's like to be pregnant and to get over it. It hurt me, I will admit. I stayed quiet and did everything she asked. I needed a break, no doubt. I cleaned the house every day, went to work, took care of the cat she wanted while she quit her job and stayed home doing nothing but watching TV and ate. I did her makeup for her like she asked, rubbed her feet, massaged her, but it never seemed to be enough. One day I asked her if I could just go hang out with my friends for a bit, and she got mad and started screaming at me, saying that she needed me here. What about the baby? I was so tired and fed up that I told her to stop using her pregnancy as an excuse to get away with things. I cared about the baby, but I will not stand for this. She called me an a-hole and I walked out. Am I the a-hole? Now let's jump into the relevant comments here. So OP had 183, so narrowed it down as much as possible. Here's an important comment. Before the pregnancy, we always shared chores, and I did everything equally, or what we considered equal. We never had any problems with communication or anything, but after she got pregnant, things changed slowly but surely at first. It was simple things, as she couldn't bend over and tie her shoes, or she couldn't bend to a certain extent, which I understand, and I completely did everything for her, no questions asked. But as time passed, it gradually got worse. She couldn't do laundry, she couldn't cook a meal, she couldn't vacuum, hell, she couldn't even check the mail. Everything was practically on top of me. I didn't even have time to visit friends or do anything for myself outside of getting money and providing for the baby/wife and cleaning the household. It felt the odds were mostly on top of me. She never contributed anymore. She kept using the baby as an excuse or her pregnancy as an excuse, and I understand if she had complications with her pregnancy or if it was a high risk, but the doctors never said anything about her pregnancy causing any complications. Then it got to the point where I had to do massages for her, and makeup and nails, and buy her expensive maternity clothing because she still wanted to look pretty, and I understand wanting to be pretty because she might have insecurities. But again, I was taking money out to buy her all these things that she wanted to look pretty, and they were pretty expensive. She wanted a very pretty robe she saw on TikTok. It cost $160. Not to mention that we didn't spend as much money on the baby as much as I would like. We only got the baby a week's worth of clothes, while wife got a lot more. She's been doing things out of impulses, such as buying a cat that she knows that I'm allergic to. I tried brushing everything off as pregnancy hormones, but it just doesn't seem to be that case anymore. And then more about his plans for the cat. OP says, I just wish I could actually love cats the way people without allergies can, but sadly I can't. I want to give an animal I genuinely want all the love and affection and support I can offer, but sadly I'm very limited because of the cat. Not to mention, I barely have time for the cat. I want someone who can love the cat much more than I ever could to adopt him. He's a sweet guy, but just not for me, which is okay too. And then to a different commenter, shelters yes, but I want good quality shelters. I don't want a no-kill shelter to be horrible breeding grounds or anything else. I've never owned or adopted an animal, but want them to be loved and cared for. If people have suggestions to actual good animal shelters, I would love to hear. And then to a third. And while my allergies may be minor, doesn't mean I still want to be cautious around my own house or take other measurements. Personally, I don't see any problems with me not wanting my house because I'm allergic. Even if it's minor, it's still an allergy. I hope you see where I'm coming from. I love cats, don't get me wrong. They're adorable. They can be loving and kind, but it's just not for me, especially with an allergy, so more caution. Another commenter says, bro, she's pregnant, not disabled. Now, if she was 8 to 9 months, that's a different story in regards to pampering and house chores. But make up. Get ready for a long ride, my dude. OP says, the only thing about it is that she acts like it's a high-risk pregnancy, that she can't do anything. She isn't, though, and is 6 months pregnant. Not to mention that our finances have been going more to her than the actual baby. Commenter says, going to her how? At 6 months, the only extra money she needs are maybe maternity clothes, good prenatal vitamins, and some money for fast food cravings or little extras like that. We're currently 5 months and spending a ton, but it's all going to the nursery like it should. OP says, well, for example, on TikTok she saw this cute maternity robe. It cost $160, expensive as hell, and yes, we spent money on a crib and a week worth of clothes for the baby, while she got much more than a week of maternity clothing. And then the commenter replies, that hurts my heart. I'd love fancy things, but I'd never imagine asking my husband for something outside of our budget when we're prepping for a baby. You're spoiling her, which is maybe your way of trying to show her you care, but look at what it's doing. She needs a reality check. OP says, I plan on discussing budgeting with her. Definitely go to couples therapy, getting personal therapy, and giving the cat a no-kill shelter. If there's any other suggestions, please do tell. This is my first time during a pregnancy, and I wasn't able to read the book or anything because of the fact that I have to do so much to provide for her and the baby. What do you mean by you walked out? OP says, by walked out, I mean I left the house and went to hang out with my friend. But sadly, the hanging out turned more into me talking about all the problems I had with my wife. Commenter says, NTA, as others have said, unless she's medically at risk in some way, there's no reason to suddenly cease all normal activities. Did you both discuss this beforehand? Did you tell her it was fine to quit working and you would take care of everything? OP replies, she also did not discuss her quitting her job. She just kind of told me in the middle of dinner one day. It's hard to provide for both a baby, me, and her alone, so I had to get multiple jobs. Then on the makeup thing, OP says, for the makeup part, I figured it was the right thing to do. She told me she was exhausted and tired, so I just did those things for her thinking that she needed it, or she would appreciate it. The commenter replies, is your post even real, dude? Why did she quit her job? Why would you need to do everything? I can't believe you did her makeup and all that after it too. This can't be real. OP says, I'm not sure why she quit her job, but I can assure you that post is real. If you don't believe me, that's fine too, but the reason why I feel I need to do all this stuff is because she's pregnant. All I ever wanted to do was make her happy and make her comfortable during this time. I don't know what it's like to be pregnant, nor have I ever really been around people who were pregnant. It was a completely new area for me. Since she was the one who's going through all of this, I just went by what she said. I trusted her and what she told me, but over time it became more difficult, more demanding, and overall couldn't be happy. I'm luckily seeking a personal therapist now, and I have an appointment in a week. Then an update was posted later that night. I recently talked to my wife about couples marriage and personal therapy. She agreed that personal therapy is a must, as I apparently have been having all the issues in this relationship since she got pregnant. Although she said that couples therapy wasn't something she wanted to do. When I asked her reasoning for this, she simply replied by saying, too much stress for me and the baby. Why are you making this such a big deal? When I simply tried explaining how other moms suggested it being good and healthy, she blew up on me again, saying, why are you talking to other girls? Do you not trust me? I'm not sure how the conversation went immediately to that. I was adamant about the couple therapy as I wanted to see our child grow up together and didn't want our relationship to fail. To this she responded, I'm afraid our relationship is too far from saving. I'm completely devastated about how the conversation played out. I'm not sure what to do, but she barricaded the bedroom door and I'm forced to sleep on the couch. I called my friend to stay the night at his place and hopefully things will change in the morning. I'm sorry this didn't go the way we all hoped for. Now let's read some more relevant comments. Another commenter says, when speaking to the divorce lawyer, ask about custody arrangements in the house. Sort it out before the baby is born or it will be impossible to get anything, house-wise, fairly while there is a newborn there. You get on top of this and speak to friends and family about how you aren't allowed to do X, Y, Z and do all the chores and housework. Tell them you're being abused and ask for their support. OP says, I'll definitely consult into adult divorce lawyer, but honestly, I do feel very guilty for what I did. I said I felt as though I was gaslighted. She kept trying to turn the whole subject around, basically blaming me that this was my fault, that I didn't do enough or I should behave better. I don't know what it's like to be pregnant. I've never been around pregnancy and I hate to use it as an excuse, but I honestly have no idea what I'm doing or what I could do better. All of this is the first time, and I figured since she was going through it, she would be the most helpful person. Although, turns out it was the complete opposite. Another commenter says, in about 3 months, you're going to learn the meaning of unconditional love. It truly blindsides you, and there's no way to prepare yourself. Just know that it will happen. Her behavior will look even worse in light of that feeling because everything will be gauged by how it affects your child and their health, happiness, and overall well-being. OP says, thank you, really. Everyone has been such a help. They really opened my eyes about what's really going on. I just need to take some time to grieve. Definitely talk to a therapist. It seems that my relationship has sunk. All I need to focus on now is the baby and getting my mental state back in place. And update post 1 came the next day. My wife's sister went to talk to her and she got back to me. Apparently my wife wasn't acting like her normal self. The way she described my wife was paranoid, upset easily, and speaking nonsense. I don't quite understand, but her sister told me that she would definitely speak to the doctor about it. I'm afraid and fear the worst. I asked if I should come over. She said that might not be the best plan and she will take a week off of work to help take care of her sister if anything was to happen. That she doesn't seem able to take care of herself. I agreed it would be the best course of action for right now. I'm not sure what to do now. I've never been through this before. Any help? Update post 2 came 3 weeks later. So I will keep this short but straight to the point. My wife went to the doctors and she has something called postpartum psychosis. I got the information from my sister-in-law. I've been doing my research about it as I know little about this diagnosis. I've came to ask for reliable sources and what to do. How can I help her? Any help is appreciated, whether you've been through it, have experience, or just know anything about it. I thought postpartum happened after pregnancy, but this is a whole new concept. Now let's read this relevant comment here. The commenter says, you need to get in contact with a doctor before she becomes a risk to herself or the baby. Call the damn paramedics if you need to, if she becomes completely resistant to speaking with medical professionals. In DMs, I mentioned how she might be suffering from a prenatal form of PPD/PPA, and I know you can't get in contact with her OB, but any doctor you speak to will be able to contact them if you know their name. There's nothing more you can do but get her help. OOP replies, I'll definitely see if her sister can help me get in contact. Since she is there, I'll ask her to send me contact information and I'll call them immediately. Then update post 3 came 1 week later, which was 1 month from the OG post. According to a lot of comments and chat messages I received, it's actually called prepartum psychosis, which I'm very grateful for the correct term. As I was never really in the doctor's office when this was spoken, I was just referring to everything that my SIL told me. Thankfully, I have the correct term, which I'm going to be doing even more studying about this diagnosis. Thank you all for your support, help sources, etc., etc. I also realize that I have a lot of typos, which makes my story seem a little unbelievable. Which is true, I don't blame you. In all honesty, I never proofread, so I'm going to have a lot of typos. Are you trying to fix the typos as much as I can to make my story seem a little bit more sense? But the typos haven't all been caught. If you also see some lettering spaced together, that's because I was trying to save as much space as possible to write, as I'm only limited to a certain amount. Not to mention, because some of them are spaced together and create a new word. So I do apologize in advance. And I do thank everybody who has been helping me. Then update 4 comes 11 months later, which was 1 year from the OG post. It's over. Officially over. We got a divorce, and I would like to say how incredibly grateful I am for everything. The divorce and custody was a huge pain, but we got through it. I so desperately wanted everything to work out for the best, but there was too much damage and wreckage. Lots of stress and fighting. I will do whatever I can as a father to protect and raise my baby. Thank you everyone who has been with me throughout this journey, and I'm grateful to say I'm in a happier place. Well, this is an unfortunate ending that kind of escalated quickly. My advice, now again, I don't have the full story here, but the thing about pregnancies is that they're temporary, so he's complaining about not being able to hang out with his friends and do stuff like that. Like, my advice, as annoying as it might be, would be to continue to cater to your wife. She's definitely milking it. But, again, in 9-10 months, it'll be over. And if she's still acting this way in the months following delivering the baby, then that's when you kind of have that discussion. But I think trying to confront her when hormones are at an all-time high, she's pregnant. Again, I do believe that she was maybe milking it for all it was worth, but there's no doubt that the pregnancy hormones sort of amplify those feelings. And he clearly cares for her because he was just like a whipped dog doing everything that she asked and apparently needed. So for this to end in divorce, like upon the baby being born, I just think that it was a timing issue. I think that he brought it up a little bit too soon. He should have just sucked it up, waited out the pregnancy, and then saw what happened after the baby was born. But, too late now. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter her much older boyfriend isn't welcome in our home? My F48 husband, M46, and I have a 20-year-old daughter, Ellie, who is currently on vacation from college. About 5 months or so ago, Ellie told us that she had a new boyfriend, who I'll call Tom. This came rather out of the blue, as Ellie hadn't mentioned seeing anyone or that she was dating, but both my husband and I were supportive and happy for her. However, Ellie was strangely secretive about the whole situation. Usually she's an open book, especially with me, and would always share details of her personal life. On this occasion, she wouldn't show any pictures, and we knew next to no information about Tom, other than that they met at a party through a mutual friend. Ellie spent the past month of her vacation in her college town, and the plan was always for her to come back this weekend. Ellie asked if she could bring Tom with her for a few days of the trip, as they were getting serious, and she wanted him to meet us. Although we mentioned that we knew barely anything about him, Ellie expressed that it would be a surprise and that we'd love him. Given he's clearly an important part of our daughter's life, we agreed and said we'd look forward to spending the weekend together. Yesterday morning, we went to pick up Ellie and Tom from the airport to drive them to our place, and we were shocked. We knew instantly that Tom was much older than Ellie, and he certainly wasn't a college student. I was just in a state of surprise, but didn't want to cause a scene, and told my husband to do the same. We drove home, but it was a frosty journey, which Ellie commented on. When we arrived, my husband point-blank asked Tom how old he was. Tom said he was 44. I was immediately disgusted. He's only 2 years younger than my husband and old enough to be Ellie's father. My husband continued to interrogate him, asking how they met and the whole background. Ellie explained that it was at a party and Tom was there because he's well known around the town, and they realized they had a lot in common and hit it off from there. I really didn't want to hear anymore, and my husband told Tom to leave. Ellie shouted and said how unfair this was, and we hadn't even given Tom a chance, and said that he made her happy. Tom could sense the tension, so left, and Ellie followed behind him. I texted Ellie to tell her we'd love to see her and to come over to discuss the situation. She asked if Tom was welcome, and I said he wasn't. Therefore, after labeling me a, quote, judgmental a-hole, she told me she wasn't coming and that they would be staying at a local hotel and catching up with friends. I feel terrible about the whole situation and don't want to lose my daughter over it. My husband isn't budging and says he'd have to be held back if he ever saw that man again. Am I the a-hole for saying he isn't welcome, or have I done the right thing? Well, let's read some relevant comments here. User 1 says, I had similar, and my foster dad was what I believed amazingly chill about me dating a guy in his mid-30s when I was 19. I spoke to him over a decade later, and he said he wanted to deck the guy, but knew if he pushed me, then I'd dig my heels in, and the relationship would go on far longer. Instead, he asked me to check in so he knew where I was, and when I'd be back to make sure I was safe. He did, however, do other things to gently highlight the inequality of the relationship. For example, he'd make sure to say how nice I looked every time I left the house. The boyfriend would send me back to the house for not wearing makeup / the right clothes. It didn't take too long for me to put 2 and 2 together and realize the boyfriend was a control freak who wanted a trophy girlfriend. User 2 says, NTA, he was at a college party because he's well known around town. That means he's well known for preying on younger women and probably also for buying alcohol for underage college students. User 3 says, play the long game here. Best story I've heard. The dad befriended the guy. They talked about stuff relevant to their age group, did dad age stuff together, talked about things like insurance and retirement and house payments, went out to eat at boring grown-up places instead of sports bars, and just generally acted like middle-aged men. She realized she was basically dating her father. They had almost nothing in common and broke up. User 4 says, NTA, Former cop, advocate. I would suggest you don't give her a reason to distance herself further from you and your husband, because Tom needs to stop your support and brainwash her to think you're against her and you're not. I encourage you to not exclude him. You can get together somewhere in public, so he's not in your home, but you aren't letting him keep your daughter away while you navigate this precarious situation. All the best. Now here's an update. First off, I wanted to thank everyone for their comments and messages yesterday. I was overwhelmed with the responses and didn't expect my post to gain so much traction. I know opinions were quite split, but I appreciate everyone for being honest. Please accept my apologies for not responding to everyone, but there has been a lot on my mind, so I thought it would be best to provide an update for those interested. For those who haven't read the whole post, a brief summary is my 20-year-old daughter Ellie brought home her boyfriend of 5 months, Tom, to our house. Tom happens to be 44, and my husband and I told Tom that he wasn't welcome in our home. Ellie and Tom are currently staying in a nearby hotel. I was incredibly down throughout most of Sunday, so I spoke to my husband and said that I really wanted to see Ellie. However, I knew that wouldn't be possible without also saying Tom, so I mentioned to my husband about meeting Ellie and Tom at a neutral location for brunch today. I asked my husband if he wanted to join, but he said he didn't feel in the right frame of mind at this stage, so we agreed that I would go alone. I was anxious throughout the drive, but when I met Ellie, those nerves subsided relatively quickly. I was generally just happy to see her and that she was well. I still felt a bit uncomfortable around Tom, but I thought this was the opportunity to find out more about him and his intentions, as it were. We sat down and I tried to find out as much information about Tom as possible. When I asked him to elaborate on being known around a college town and being at the same party as Ellie, Tom said he used to go to the same college when he was Ellie's age, loved the place, and decided to never leave. Throughout this time, he still frequented the main bars and places that college students do, which meant he remained in the community in some form. I found it quite an unsettling response, but remained polite. In terms of other details I learned, Tom has never been married, nor does he have any children. He works as a software engineer and enjoys cooking and meditation in his spare time. Something felt off about him, but maybe I already had my preconceptions. Ellie spoke more about what a good match they were and how much in common they had. When I asked her to elaborate, she spoke about how they both loved the same spots around town and campus, with apparently the same love of sushi, and she's never met someone so mature and understanding. Tom also said that Ellie was perfect for him, and he was serious. I probed if he had many other relationships with younger women. Ellie didn't enjoy this question, but Tom said that he generally didn't do relationships, yet something about Ellie had drawn him in. Eventually, after about 2 hours, we ended the brunch. Ellie said how nice it had been, and she was so happy I had shown interest in Tom before asking whether they could both come to dinner some evening. I told her that would be nice, but I would have to speak to her dad. Tom shook my hand, and that was that. My husband remains reluctant, but I feel it's the right thing to do if we want to maintain a relationship with Ellie. I didn't like Tom off first impressions, and this hasn't done much to convince me. Something is just off there, and some of his answers solidified my thoughts about him not being right for Ellie. I suppose I'll have to remain open-minded, but appreciate any thoughts. Let's read some more relevant comments here. User 1 says, please make sure she's on reliable birth control. User 2 says, it would be best to get some background checks done on this man. There could be a lot of lies involved. He sounds sketchy enough already. User 3 says, wonder if OP could call the college and ask if he's known there? Maybe get a gauge on him if he is. User 4 says, I appreciate how hard you both protect your daughter, but at the end of the day, she's an adult and she can't make her own mistakes if she feels pressure from you guys to make decisions. Thing is, if she keeps pushing away because you guys are reluctant to let her be an adult all on her own, she won't come to you when she needs help either. If this guy ends up being a bad guy and she needs someone to be there for her, why would she come to you if she feels as though she's just going to be shamed? I would say an entirely different spiel if she was, say, 16 or 17. But she's an adult in college, learning her way around this world, and she's going to need support in controlling her own life without you directly deciding what she can and can't do. You said she was secretive about it from the jump, and that tells me she knew your reaction. It's time to show her you can be a supportive friend when she needs you instead of an unsupportive parent. This was a good first step. Edit. A new update was posted near when the BORU was. According to our rules, we can add it to this post, but do not comment on it. Now here's a new update. First off, apologies to everyone for not updating sooner and my lack of replies. I post and read everyone's replies and messages, but it's so overwhelming that I struggle to know who to respond to. However, a lot has happened in the past week and enough people asked for an update, so I thought I would provide one. For context, for those who haven't read the original post and first update, my 20-year-old daughter Ellie brought home her boyfriend Tom from college for the first time. He turned out to be 44, and it's been a huge shock to my husband and I. I met him without my husband and my daughter for brunch without feeling entirely comfortable about the situation, but my biggest priority is not losing my daughter. After I came home from brunch, I spoke to my husband about the possibility of Tom and Ellie joining us for dinner one evening. My husband was completely against it, but I told him that if we still wanted to exercise some degree of control over the situation before we pushed Ellie away entirely, this was something we had to agree to do. It took a lot of convincing, but my husband agreed and we invited Tom and Ellie to come round the Saturday just gone. Before then, I ended up talking to my oldest daughter and Ellie's sister, Holly, 23, about the situation. Holly was shocked and Ellie had told her nothing. Holly decided to do some social media digging but struggled because Tom didn't have much of an online presence. She said she was coming to dinner on Saturday, although I was reluctant because it seemed like it would spiral. Eventually, I said yes. So we get to the dinner on Saturday, and Holly just continually grills Tom. It was far, far worse than I did. She asked him if younger girls were his type, why someone his age is still hanging around at college parties, and other small remarks. Ellie told her multiple times to leave her alone, and I tried to act as a mediator. My husband was just silently seething, and I could tell how uncomfortable he felt in Tom's presence. Eventually, Tom and Ellie said they had some big news to share. Ellie announced that she and Tom were planning to move in together for the upcoming college year. I almost spat my drink out. Ellie had planned to live with other friends, and when I questioned this, Tom answered that he realized he probably won't have another long-term relationship. Ellie makes him so happy, and he doesn't want to waste any time with who I want to be my wife and the future mother of my children. At this point, my husband lost it and told Tom to get out of his house. Tom stood up and seemed affronted, and Ellie started crying. I couldn't remember the last time my husband had shouted like that, and I think it surprised Ellie. Holly said it was deserved and said she needed to get away from the creep freak. It all ended up with Ellie leaving in tears with Tom, my husband going upstairs, and I was just inconsolable. I've reached out to Ellie since, but she hasn't responded. I don't want her to move in with Tom, and it seems he's trying to derail her whole life. She's 20 and does not need to be married and have kids, especially with someone his age. She's never had a relationship before, though, and she appears infatuated to the extent she's not going to listen. My husband has told me that if Ellie marries Tom, that is it, and he wouldn't want a relationship with her going forwards. I can't agree with that, and will always love Ellie, but it doesn't mean that the whole situation hasn't made me incredibly sad. I would appreciate any advice. Story 4. Am I the a-hole for not forcing my fiancé to choose a different best man, even though his best man bullied my brother? Stressed and on mobile, so you've been warned. My fiancé and Jack were next-door neighbors, but my fiancé attended a private school, so didn't go to the same school as us. They've been best friends all growing up, and I met my fiancé when we both worked at a restaurant, and we've been dating for 4 years. My family have met my fiancé, including my brother, and they all love him. That much that my brother, fiancé, and dad went on a guy's fishing trip pre-COVID. I've also met Jack, which was a bit of a shock initially, as I knew he was really mean to my brother growing up, especially with him being really nice to me. I'm not keen on him for what he put my brother through, but I respect the bond he has with my fiancé because they're literally like brothers and are incredibly close. The problem: after the engagement, we were talking about the bridesmaids and groomsmen, and fiancé was adamant that when we get married, Jack must be by his side. Jack was by him throughout really challenging times in his life, and that it is non-negotiable whether he is best man or not. I made an attempt to speak to my brother privately about Jack being best man and offer him the joint role with my dad to walk me down the aisle so he can really be included, but he accidentally found out before I could speak to him after my mom mentioned it. He then went mental at me for even thinking that he would show up to a wedding if Jack was there, and also thinking he would accept a pity position of walking me down the aisle, especially since Jack is getting any special role all to himself. He's now refusing to even talk about possible solutions with me if any of them include Jack. I honestly didn't realize that Jack would be that much of a problem because they both had attended my fiance's birthday party a few years back. Am I the a-hole if I refuse to make my fiance change his best man? Quick edit. My fiance, brother, and Jack's ages are 24/25 years old. The bullying happened when they were between 10 to 14 years old, and the bullying was largely name-calling and excluding my brother from playing with them. Verdict: everyone sucks. Here's an update. Reading the relevant comments, user 1 says, Info, have you taken to your fiance about the fact that Jack bullied your brother? What was his response? OP says, after I realized that my fiance and Jack were best friends, we had a massive conversation about it and what Jack had done to my brother. My fiance didn't justify what Jack had done, and they spoke about it themselves, and Jack assured my fiance that he's not like that anymore and has grown up. I'm still not overly friendly with Jack, but he has said to me if my brother's willing to talk to him, he's willing to apologize for everything. My brother has refused him of all social media or communications, hence why I'm having to be the relayer of information. User 2 says, alright, so your fiancé knew, but if Jack has truly changed as he insisted, was there any conversation about making amends to your brother? You all will be family, and Jack is his best friend, and there was no talk about how your brother will react? Seems like you were hoping that there would always be some distance between you, your brother, and Jack. In hindsight, it seems so horribly naive. Without Jack apologizing, I don't know what your fiance's apology is going to mean. Sorry you were bullied by Jack, but he's my best friend, and I want him as my best man in the wedding to your sister? Sounds like you two want to sweep this under the rug and have your brother squash down his feelings for the sake of attending this wedding. I really hope this isn't the case. OP says, honestly, I thought that the distance between them was fine. Definitely naive of me, I know, and you all can shout at me for that because I accept that. They had been around each other before for my fiance's birthday parties, so I assumed that giving my brother an important role would be okay, but honestly it's not. I've honestly been really oblivious to the entire thing and now trying to find any solution. Then an update post came 2 months later. Hi Reddit, some of you wanted a bit of an update, so here I am. Sorry that it's really long and sporadic, but my mind still isn't clear. After the post, I also reached out to my mom and dad, begging them to let me speak to my brother or at least ask him if he would be okay with me being there and listening to why he didn't feel comfortable with Jack, the bully, in his wedding. I promised that I would listen to anything he had to say without hesitation and that I need to make him a priority. My brother agreed to it as long as I agreed to stay silent throughout and not speak back. We met up about a week after my post at home with my mom and dad there as witnesses and to help enforce my not speaking rule. To sum it up, my brother was upset that he was going to be replaced by Jack at the wedding and thought that this time fiancé would have chosen him over Jack for the best man. The bullying when he was younger was usually to do with Jack being more athletic than my brother, or smarter than my brother, or funnier and more well-liked than my brother. It really hurt my brother that Jack came back into his life, and again, it was like Jack was a better choice for best man than my brother. He was quite upset, and I ended up breaking my silence rule to say that I'm incredibly sorry. My fiancé and I spoke about the wedding and what my brother had said. There were none that would lead to both of us being truly happy, so for a few days we tried to take a break from the stress. Jack came over to visit around this time and sensed something was really wrong, and he found out my brother was refusing to come to the wedding. Jack knew it was because of his presence and being the best man, and decided to tell fiancé that my family is his family, and he wouldn't show up to the wedding, but celebrate with us before and after. He didn't want fiancé to start our married life on the wrong foot, and he said that was his karma from being a bully. We ended up respecting Jack's choice, albeit my fiancé was upset but understood that Jack was trying to look out for him. We relayed that Jack was no longer in the wedding back to my immediate family, and my brother agreed to go. So things were fine for a while until we met up with my family again for the first time since the fallout. My brother ended up speaking to my fiancé alone and started trashing Jack and asking if he could be the best man now since Jack got kicked out. My fiancé told my brother that Jack left the wedding with dignity himself, so my brother could be happy there. Fiancé ended up walking out after some more harsh words from both sides. Fiancé ended up walking out of the house and we had to have a frank discussion. We've chosen to not get married anymore. It's too much hassle, and if we were, we'd just elope. Right now, we're needing a lot more time to fix ourselves, our relationship, and our relationships with our families. We may be taking some time apart soon if things don't get better soon, but in the end, my fiance is the man I thought I was going to spend my life with. Now let's read some more relevant comments. User 1 says, "What did your brother say about Jack to your fiance? It honestly sounds like he wanted to be the best man position as a way to beat Jack. It sounds like he's gloating about getting Jack removed and is wanting to find a way to add that superiority that he feels." OP says, "He was calling him self-important, manipulative, cheap, but the last string was when he was saying how he's a selfish C-word. Since what he did was the opposite of selfish, it just was the last straw." User 2 says, "Props to Jack for taking responsibility for being the author of the situation. Your brother seems unhealed from the past trauma and unhealthily fixated on his place in fiance's circle of friends. Has he had any therapy?" OOP says, "He's been in therapy before, but decided he wouldn't go back as he feels a lot better now. To be honest, I was really uncomfortable about him asking to be best man. It was like rubbing salt in a wound, and I don't know if he just wants the validation from fiance or to one-up Jack now." So the brother's the problem. Let's just cut the crap. I know that he was bullied and what have you when they were children, and they appear to be in their mid-20s now, and he is just acting like an absolute whiny little girl throwing a temper tantrum. Taking a wedding between two people, making it all about him. It's not even his freaking wedding. And basically forcing the couple to remove the Jack guy from the wedding, who appears to, have matured and trying to be the bigger person here, but you still have this guy holding something against you from, that happened when you were kids, and it just sounds like it's jealousy more than anything. It doesn't really sound like Jack really did. It's not like he was stuffing him into lockers and beating him up on the playground. It's just literally like, okay, Jack was more popular. Jack got better grades in school. And now you're going to serve as a homewrecker because you can't get over that 10 to 15 years later? I mean, I don't know. I would have just gone ahead and let Jack be the best man, have the wedding, and let the brother, cry at home while he's watching cartoons in his onesie pajamas and, eating Cinnamon Toast Crunch. He needs to grow up. This is entirely on him. Moving on. Story 5. Am I the a-hole for opening my M28 girlfriend's F27 gift that she did not want to open? My girlfriend recently had a birthday. We had a small get-together at our apartment, but my girlfriend feels uncomfortable opening gifts in front of people because of the pressure, and all of our friends know that. She opened them privately that evening. 2 days later, my parents' gift arrived. My parents are on the wealthy side and bought her a designer handbag she had been openly admiring the last time we visited. They had purchased the bag that weekend and had been saving it for her birthday. She responded a thank you before she opened it and would let them know when she did. The box sat on her dresser for about 2 days before my parents sent a text wondering if she had opened it yet. I asked her when she would open the gift, and she just shrugged and said, "Soon." I was also really excited to see her open this gift. I knew that it was something she really wanted. A few more days passed. My parents checked in again about whether she had opened the gift. At this point, my girlfriend came to me and asked if I could tell my parents to back off, as she was feeling too much pressure around opening the gift and it was making her not want to open it. I admit that I've never really understood this, and I told her that I didn't get why she wouldn't open it. My parents weren't there, and all it would require is a thank you text at the very least to acknowledge it. To me, it was the exact same as our friends leaving the party before opening her gifts. She got really frustrated with me and said, "You just don't get how uncomfortable it makes me." About a week after the gift arrived, my parents texted me outside of our group chat and asked if she liked the bag. I told them she still had not opened the gift. They asked me if they made her uncomfortable, if they had overstepped in any way or something. They've gotten her gifts before that have never gone over like this. I truly did not understand why she was not opening it, and at this point I thought it was borderline rude to not open it and acknowledge the gift. She went out with her friends yesterday evening and I opened the box for her, displayed the bag on the dresser so that the pressure of opening it was removed and we could just move on. I really thought I was doing her a favor in ending this awkward situation. When she got home and saw it, she was pissed. She said she had guessed it was the bag she had wanted and felt awkward knowing it was an expensive gift and that she did not feel comfortable opening it yet. I tried to explain that she was being a bit rude putting it off, but she said it was more rude of me to open it for her. We went to bed shortly after, and she was very short with me this morning. The bag is still sitting on the dresser where I left it. So, am I the a-hole? Let's read some relevant comments here. First commenter says, NTA, if my GF wouldn't open my parents' gifts, I would tell her that I will tell my parents to never gift anything to her if it makes her so uncomfortable that it affects my relationship and she doesn't deserve anything from them because she doesn't appreciate it. Then we'll return gift to my parents, or to store if parents don't need it, and tell them big thanks for trying. I would also require an explanation what exactly is happening in my GF's mind and why she felt anxious so in the future I could protect her mind. Or if she can't explain it and keeps acting like an ungrateful brat in other instances, then just drop her. I hate people who create problems from nothing, and this is a problem sucked out of her finger. It is very hard to live with such people as they will create drama from pretty much everything. OOP replied and was later downvoted, dude, way too much. She's not ungrateful and she's not a brat. Commenter replies, I put money down that your girlfriend has some form of untreated OCD. OOP says, you're not the first person to have said this. A few of our mutual friends have commented on some of her tendencies common with OCD. Could you elaborate? I don't think either of us would have associated it with our perception of OCD. Commenter says, info, has your relationship been good recently? Any fights or perceived slights? I'm wondering if maybe she felt it was wrong to accept a gift from them because of something related to your relationship. Small things like this often go a bit deeper than you would expect. OOP replied and was again downvoted. A few comments have suggested this, but with full sincerity, our relationship is great. We are very in love. Clearly, I blundered here, but I don't think she was avoiding opening it because of a problem in our relationship. OOP is voted ESH. Everyone sucks here. Updated post came the next day. I wasn't planning on updating, but there were some things in the comments I wanted to address. Most importantly, my GF and I are still together. Not once did it cross my mind that she was avoiding the gift because she wanted to break up with me. We've been together for 3 years and are in a loving relationship. I effed up in this situation, but we'll get through it. I was raised in a polite, always send a thank you card kind of way, which it seems other people in the comments can relate to. But my parents were in no way bombarding us with texts or harassing her over this gift. We have a group chat together, and they sent a follow-up text every other day or so, just wondering if she had opened it. They are definitely nosy Midwestern parents, but we both know they're not coming from a place of negativity or blame or in any way trying to pressure her into something. They were genuinely excited to have been able to provide this gift for her. They have a great relationship. Yes, my girlfriend has expressed discomfort around opening gifts before, but not in a way that indicated she doesn't like receiving them. She has told me she just hates the pressure of reacting a certain way in front of people and also thinks it can be awkward for other gift givers. Usually, if someone gifts her something, she opens it as soon as she is in private. On her birthday, I left her gift on the bed and went to get breakfast. When I came back, she had opened it and was happy with it. That's why I was so confused as to why she had not opened this gift. As effed as it sounds, I really did think I was helping by opening the gift. Comments have helped me realize exactly where I went wrong, but I never had the intention of manipulating her or coercing her or controlling her. I admit that I let my own desire to see her joy at the gift overshadow the true intention. When we returned home from work yesterday, we sat down together to work it all out, starting with me apologizing for ruining her gift. She told me she had called my parents on her lunch break and thanked them. She told me she had a feeling they'd gotten her the bag after she'd been talking about it, and was both excited and anxious about the cost. She said by the time the package arrived, she had gotten her hopes up and felt guilty of potential disappointment if she opened it and it wasn't the bag, and that her anxiety around it continued to build up as it sat there. She apologized to me for not being able to communicate that clearly beforehand. I do understand this, and I know that I jumped the gun a bit. We also talked a bit around neurodivergence. I appreciate everyone who posted about their experience with anxiety/autism/OCD. It's not the first time she's been told she has autistic or OCD tendencies, though at the moment she's unsure if she wants to move forward with getting a diagnosis. Then here's the top comment. Commenter says, I'm guessing it is the last time your parents buy her a nice gift. They spent a pile of money on it. I understand taking it home, but open it when you get home in private. All they wanted to know is that their thoughtfulness and money was appreciated. It clearly wasn't. When you love people and you're neurodivergent, if you want to keep them around, you have to learn to act like a normie, or at least near enough to not be offensive. She needs to work on this skill. So obviously there's some kind of social anxiety tick here. I do think that OP jumped the gun by opening the gift. I'm not going to try to pretend to understand the girlfriend's headspace, but obviously this is not normal, typical behavior, and clearly, as some of the commenters said, she's got some form of neurodivergence or OCD, so you don't want to make light of that and be understanding of it. But with that being said, I think that in the future, just kind of learning from this and moving on, maybe just don't give her gifts. Give her an experience. Take her somewhere, take her on a trip, take her to dinner, something like that, but don't give her like a physical package to open. That seems to be the root of the problem here, and maybe it'll go over a little bit better on her next birthday. Story 6. Parents changed their mind on attending my, F18, high school graduation after my church announced their own in 2 weeks, and they want me to attend that instead. So I'm writing this because my college plans were uprooted as of Sunday, June 16th. I'll be graduating this week, and my ceremony is later this week. However, my church announced that they'll be doing their own graduation ceremony on July 7th, where they'll have church graduates walk down the aisle of the sanctuary during service to be recognized and receive prayer, and the pastor announced it on the 16th. According to my parents, he said it was important to make sure the next generation rooted their future in God, and the church will be having a barbecue after service in honor of the graduates. However, I haven't attended church since I was 16 due to an incident I'll explain later, but my parents seem hell-bent on making sure I attend, not just the church graduation, but church from now on too, and they added strings to prior agreements that were never attached. Before the church graduation was announced, my parents agreed to split tuition with me to attend a community college upon me finding a job this summer. I plan to transfer afterward to finish my bachelor's. However, after the announcement, my parents said they weren't going to attend my graduation and that I wasn't allowed to either. A complete 180 out of nowhere. We even invited relatives to attend from out of state, but my parents already told them to attend the church graduation instead, and I feel like they pulled the rug from under me. When I said I still plan to attend my high school graduation with friends, they threatened to rescind their offer to pay for college if I went, and didn't come to the church one, and I just feel blindsided by this. When I tried to explain how they changed their mind out of nowhere, they said that the pastor talked about how people lost their way in college by disregarding faith and morals, so they weren't going to pay for me to go and change because of worldly influences. But when I said that I would pay for tuition myself, without them if I find a job, while still attending the high school graduation, they said they'd charge me rent starting in July, which is unfair because I've yet to find a job. I've been applying like crazy the past few weeks, and I have a few interviews lined up too. They're just trying to make me return to church after I stopped attending 2 years ago, and I've been really frustrated with their flip-flop. They said they're doing this because they made mistakes in college before later finding God, and they didn't want me to make the same ones too. The last thing I'll add is this. I was bullied in that church in the past, and I reached my breaking point 2 years ago. The youth had a camp out on the grass behind the church where I was hazed by this really annoying girl, and no one did anything, including the assistant/chaperone in our tent. There were stupid pranks that were made in good fun, but the most hurtful thing was when that one girl made jokes/comments about my body/weight when we were changing that really hurt. And our tent chaperone didn't do anything when I told her afterwards, because she wasn't in there as we changed. This is just one of many things with this girl during youth group when leaders weren't looking, but that was the most hurtful. However, to my surprise, my parents took my side and didn't make me attend youth group after that, and they let me stop attending for the most part to my surprise. I miss how they were reasonable in the past and hope that they can be reasonable again with me here. Most of my relatives are also churchgoers and have agreed to attend the church graduation instead, and I just need advice because it all happened so fast, and it especially hurts that they don't want to attend my high school graduation. My friends are in high school, and I don't consider anyone in our church's youth group to be my friend, so of course I want to graduate with my friends, but I can't pay rent. Edit. Just a few things I want to clear up. 1. I'm scared of them taking stuff out of my room and putting them outside if they see me attend the high school graduation, because they know when it is, and I'm afraid to come back and they won't let me in if they're that far into their nonsense. For that reason, I'm weighing the risk of attending even if it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. We don't have a lease, and I'm going to see if a friend's parents can home me in case and even help me find legal advice, but I'm willing to skip my high school graduation if it helps me long-term and I'm unable to find temporary stay with a friend. I'll also talk to my non-church-going relatives because I don't want anyone relaying anything to my parents, and that includes my older sister who's moved out but still attends church and is close with my parents' opinions on religion and politics. 2. The pastor didn't schedule the church graduation on a conflicting day with my or anyone's high school graduation. The church graduation will take place on a Sunday during service, where graduates will walk down the aisle to receive prayer, followed by a church-wide barbecue in the back of the church afterwards in honor of the graduates. My parents made the BS of forcing me to only attend the church graduation instead of my high school one. The pastor never said that. Now here's an update post. I was unable to update sooner due to my phone being taken away, but I'll explain why. A few people suggested reaching out to some non-religious relatives to see if they could help or even provide shelter if they tried to throw me out, and I decided on my aunt after having no success with friends. I told some friends first about everything my parents threatened, but long story short, they talked to their parents who were unable to take me in, and they said it was last minute or mostly busy with their own things/graduations too. I then tried my aunt and told her everything too, and she said I could stay with her soon, but not in time for my high school graduation because it was really short notice. She said I could at some point this summer, and she wasn't initially coming to my graduation because she lives on the other side of the country, but she said she would try to talk some sense into my parents, and that led to my phone being removed. My parents didn't like that I told her because it was none of her business according to them. I don't know what was said on the call, and they threatened to turn off my phone plan unless I gave them my phone, and I caved when they were yelling at me and gave it to them, along with my laptop they wanted too, because they threatened to kick me out sooner than July for, quote, talking about them to my aunt, because she could tell others. They also said that they'd put my stuff outside while I was at the high school graduation if I attended, so they would kick me out that night instead of their original threat to start charging me rent in July. So for those reasons, plus another I'll say in a moment, I decided not to attend my high school graduation because I wouldn't be able to enjoy it. I was already having anxiety about what they'd do to my stuff while there, and I didn't want to be homeless when I returned. I also had a loss of motivation to do other things leading up to it. Hobbies like sports, hanging out, or even watching TV. I knew I wouldn't enjoy it because I was already dreading it before it happened, and my anxiety there would be worse than the lead up. I also didn't want to wear a smile the whole time with none of my family in attendance either, and I didn't think I could hide it emotionally either. I also decided to attend the church graduation to get it over with, and I rationalized it like I did with other things growing up. I was forced to go to youth group and kids choir growing up, and I was forced to be baptized too. This was no different. Just 5 minutes of the pastor calling all graduates on stage to pray for them, and they didn't even give us a gift like on Mother's Day, lol. All my life, I've had to suck up things I hated at church, and the church graduation was less tedious than the pre-baptism classes. They were mandatory, because it was only 5 minutes on stage compared to 3 weeks of baptism classes. Some relatives came, gave me money from cards, and we ate lunch at a restaurant afterwards. Something we did when my dad was elected to a church position years ago and invited friends to see him get installed before lunch afterwards. I'm pretty used to the song and dance, and this was easier/shorter than any other church BS. My parents also returned my phone after the church graduation, and a lot of my anxiety lessened when I decided to skip my graduation. Don't get me wrong, I'll always hate them for it, and I'm no longer accepting their help for college either. I'm going to find a job, hopefully 2, if part-time, and try to move out over the summer if I can, and I won't talk to them again afterwards. Because of their stress, I decided to skip a once-in-a-lifetime event to prioritize my mental health because I wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway with the stress. And the fact that they're happy with me for obeying, as they gave my phone back, should allow me to find jobs without additional stress. They also withdrew their July rent threat, and everything's been peaceful since the church graduation, although I'll never forgive them for what they tried to do. I also expect them to threaten me with something else in the future too, so I hope to move out as soon as possible, even if it means staying with my aunt until finding a job. I'm glad she said I could stay with her, and hopefully the time until I do remains peaceful. Now, here are some comments from the first post. User 1 says, I can't speak for OP's parents' church, but ceremonies like these are super common and absolutely not intended to replace graduation. The graduates are invited to attend in their cap and gown from their actual ceremony, and it's meant to put them in front of the community as a whole as almost a coming-of-age thing to recognize them as adults and invite the church community to pray over them for their future. Many who own businesses or work in management will offer an internship, job, mentoring, or a reference if they are personally familiar with them. So it's a way to say, hey, these guys are starting their journey to adulthood. Anyone who feels led to support them through networking or whatever, here's our next generation. OP replies, I will definitely look into a trade, but they said that they'll charge me rent in July if I attend my high school graduation and my church one, So it's the church one by itself or nothing, along with attending church afterwards. User 2 says, it would be a shame if your parents missed your high school graduation. It's recognition of the work you did in school and has nothing to do with the church. Can you try talking to them again, explaining how important their presence is to you? Maybe do both graduations if they come to both? OP replied, I'm still leaning towards going because my friends will be there and it's once in a lifetime. But I'm scared of their sudden threat to charge rent in July and not knowing how much or how soon I'll have a job after to pay for it. Like, what if they can throw me out and who knows how much they'll charge? And I've been applying for jobs like crazy the past few weeks before they pulled this nonsense, but that's no guarantee I'll get something by next month. Then we get some comments from the update. User 1 says, I'm so sorry for you. Hang in there and wait it out until you can get to your aunt. This is not normal, and I hope you find peace, stability, and support. User 2 says, you made it this far. Keep up the facade until you're out of their clutches. You'll have many more graduations and life milestones. High school graduation is a blip, and I don't even remember it at 37. Remember to have your money in a bank they don't know about, and not a joint account. Keep the Reddit and social media super hidden so they don't discover it. Get your passport, social, birth certificate too. User 3 said, you handled this the best you could. Get your ducks in a row and leave. I would recommend a community college for your associate's degree that will transfer directly to your state uni/college. Verify with both guidance department and admissions at the state college that all your CC credits will transfer. There are times they don't. Another option is trade schools. You can be out in the workforce in about a year, making good money. Your parents don't realize the damage they've done to your relationship. They are cult members and unwilling to compromise. Go be your best self and conquer your dreams. OP replies, I'm still trying to get past how they refused to attend my high school graduation. Like, the church graduation was during service on a Sunday, and it didn't conflict at all. But they changed so quickly on how public school is worldly and government took God out of school nonsense that has nothing to do with my high school graduation that they paid for. So they could have attended both as I offered, but then they threatened me to only attend the church or have my stuff be put outside. So these parents suck. Taking the whole religious aspect out of it, the bottom line is that they're extorting their daughter and basically threatening her creative free will under the guise of this sudden change of heart that they had. It's not cool. It's not okay. I'm a little disappointed to find out that she ended up skipping the graduation. I understand why she had to do it, but at the same time, reading it, you're kind of rooting for her to just stand up to her oppressive parents. That is some absolute garbage, but I hope that she's able to find work and just totally disconnect herself from that entirely until they come around. And then it will be on them. The onus will be on the parents to apologize and seek forgiveness.